Whoa, we made it. This is day 4. We are live. Yes. And I've been warned. Someone said, look, you are beginning to shake some tables. So I'm going to be guided. But if peradventure you don't see me tomorrow, just know that it was the table that I started to shake that got me off the table. You're welcome to day 4 in the redefining masculinity. Yes, today. My name is Erosion of Trust, and I'm going to be sharing some of my insights gathered over time whilst in marriage for almost over 20 years. But much more than that, the things I wish I knew as soon as I got on to this point, the things I thought I could do better. So yes, it would be nice that I have your thoughts as to how has the program been, irrespective of wherever you're logging in from, and at whatever time you're watching. It would be nice to know how has it been. I hope you're learning a few stuff. So over the course of the last 3 days, today is day 4. We started on this redefining masculinity today with something around the husband and the husband. Yes, with the dollar sign. Say the man is beyond the financial provider, but he also affords several other things, to also drive in this intensively. We also broke down the fact around that what happens when your wife earns more. Does it make you less of a man? Well, a lot of people started to ask, that well. It probably should, or somehow the man should get his acts together. But we balance that thought now, we hope that somehow that sits well with some people. Aside from that, yesterday we started to talk about around the one secret thing that every man should be mindful of. That what you're getting into goes beyond just love. It can only be the foundational basis of everything you do is aimed on what we call commitment. So that's one secret people need to take a glean on in these times. So today, we are progressing. Today is day 4. So it's going to be social media versus my marriage. Who is winning? And every person kind of relates with this, in a different way. I usually will start with a question that what are those things? Who is winning? Many couples silently struggle with today is that they're asking themselves, is social media helping or hurting my marriage? So with the rise of digital connections, social media, and several tools, I want to go back to my own era. I was sharing with some of my team members today as to the BBM era, the BlackBerry movement. Just to say that this and those tools as enablers had the potential to undermine the very foundation of the closest relationships. Many times people have found themselves scrolling through Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and the rest, and there's a lot of comparison going on. Or sometimes you just find out that that distraction is strong enough to lead you to ignore your spouse as you are being glued to your telephone. Well, marriages are greatly being influenced today by social media. And this is the discourse. Who is winning? Okay, who is winning this battle over attention? Who is winning this battle over intimacy? Who is winning this battle over trust? And I hope that by the time we're done today, we would have settled this debate, whether it's the social media or our phones, or it's your marriage. Are you in charge of your marriage? So let me ask a question. Has social media taken over your relationship? Has it taken over your relationship? Are you more committed to your phone than your spouse? Ponder over that for a minute. Are you at that point where your phone takes preeminence? So it was Simon Sinek I was listening to that started to share his thoughts as to, if you wake up in the morning and the first thing you're grappling with is your phone, you probably need to be examined. So things like nomophobia or cellulolic or whatever they call it, people that are driven or addicted to their devices need to be examined. So today we're going to be bringing all perspectives, even down to the psychological perspective. But let me even start with my story, okay? And this story is such that there was a time, in my relationship that we somewhat started to drift apart. Maybe a little argument there, maybe there are issues. It may be subtle, but after some time, remember I mentioned something about the silent treatment. And so instead of spending time together to develop intimacy, we'll turn to our phones. We'll be giggling and laughing. Whatever and whoever is chatting with us or whatever is taking our attention, somehow slowly started to become a third party in the marriage, to the point where if there are no boundaries, and you're going to begin to unravel that, so that you just see that one of your partner or one of you is fixated or connected to their phones more than each other, and that was the wake-up call that you needed at that point. So let's even start to say, what then would we say is the impact of social media? Somebody says, I'm ready again to feast. Another one says, wow. Someone says, great to be here again. Someone is laughing at us like, hey, I'm sure it's a woman. Anyway, so let's get back to the game. So the impact of social media on marriages. There are discourses around this, to the point where it has a significant role. And I think as we begin to talk about this, you can start to imagine some things that would have dropped in your mind. For me, there was a time when this craze around on your wife's birthday, someone is buying a car, a brand new car, and lo and behold, for whatever it is, the checks aren't coming, right? And you're not just able to present that check or present that car. If you are too fixated on the phone or social media, which has a lot of highlights of reels, a colleague of mine was saying, look, some of those cars are actually on rental or even a higher purchase, and then a few months later they withdraw those cars. You'll find out that if you had gone on that journey, you'll be depressed. So, we often see the best part of people's lives. And without realizing it, we start comparing our relationships to those curated versions. Somebody that is not in the business class, that somewhat takes a picture in the business class and like, oh, we are off to Mozambique or something, or we're on to the Caribbean. And they're probably just within the neighborhood. And then you start to pressure your spouse. So look, social media has kind of painted the perfect couple, okay? Where there's extravagant vacations, you have romantic gestures. There was one I saw of a couple, and I think they went to Maldives. I don't know, but somehow it started to just get us saying, look, can we go to the Maldives? So it just creates unrealistic expectations and leads to dissatisfaction in our marriages. So look, guys, social media highlights, makes us compare our lives to someone else's best moment. Why don't you just even focus on your own best moment? So one of the impacts of social media, which we are beginning to understand, is it leads to comparison and somewhat intimacy, insecurity rather. Another thing which this thing called social media is having, the impact is having on marriages, and that's why we're saying, who is winning? Is it your marriage or social media? Is the distraction from intimacy? Okay, social media is addictive. It's almost like those that are on high drugs. Okay, colos or colos. I don't know. I haven't taken colos before, but there's this video you see people that are on colos, and then they literally have to beat them, to come back. And I've seen a trend like that happening with social media. It pulls you in, it keeps you constantly entertained. There was a time the toilet was like my haven. I call it my truest place to have intimacy with myself. But with the advent of social media, with even the phones, I soon started to lose that intimacy also on my own part. I couldn't even get insights or revelation, because that used to be my closet. That was like my go-to place. Now, you cannot imagine how that has also impacted intimacy in my marriage and probably in your homes. Okay, this thing called social media, it just keeps us constantly entertained. Okay, so couples they find themselves lying next to each other, and they are not talking or bonding. They're just scrolling. They're scrolling through their phones. This distraction slowly erodes emotional and physical intimacy. When you're supposed to be, cuddling, so you're probably watching something that just takes you off on another journey. Then it also kind of leads to some form of emotional disconnect, because constantly you find out that the kind of impact, the kind of messages that are being thrown at you gets you to start to think in a different way, or probably also tells you to behave in a different way. So I don't know what started this, and I didn't know when, but there was, and I'm sure it was in this social media era that you hear a woman say, "Your money is our money, my money is my money." And 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I never could imagine that was the way anyone would think. But that is now being pushed, even in the minds of people, down to the girls, down to I'm training my daughters, right? I'm training them to become, successful individuals, notwithstanding their sexes. Okay, to say, look, it's an equal opportunity world. So I cannot get them to demean or disparage themselves to the point where they think that, they have to rely on someone, right? Then all of this would have been put to waste. So guess what? We just must now rise up and say, look, this thing decimating the marriages, relationship, in terms of wrong information, wrong insights, leading to emotional disconnect, should stop. And now, social media just builds in several things. It builds in, it could build and it could break. And I'm not totally against social media. I'm not. Because, in fact, there's the good side and there's the bad side. And there's probably the ugly side. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's even start to talk about the good side. You start to get insights, you get connection, you get inspiration. It's not bad at all. It's a tool, all right, to stay connected with your loved ones, to get inspiration. Sometimes you even get to learn about certain things. I remember there was a series I was watching on how to have healthy relationships, and I think it kind of toned me and helped us to refine our interactions, right? And that balance was necessary, where people are sharing their love stories. I think there's a program also like that where Pastor Tony Oyemade was doing some series on couples, sharing some of their flights and some of their frights and some of their winnings, and just to encourage others, to be able to build their marriages. But then, like I said, there's the dark side. The dark side. There's the dark side, right? There is a dark side. and don't get deluded, because that side, is that side that exposes each of you, all right, as the case may be, to distractions. And when I say distractions, like mega distractions, and then from distractions now we start to get into temptations. Oh yes. So so there's this story about creation, by my faith, that talks about the man. He left the home and he went to work, and he left the woman, and then there was this guy that came to distract her. And we just convinced Eve as to, hey, well, go and eat the apple. Well, that's what's happening right now. Like, look, irrespective of the fact that the women are also now working, there are plenty messages going on from old friends, from constant companions, or even infidelity that begins online, where because your spouse is also not affirming you, somebody saying, oh, you look good, you look great, where have you been since? How come I'm just coming to realize that you exist? Where were you when I met my wife? If not kept in check, these temptations will escalate, okay, and can deeply harm the trust in any marriage. And I tell you, and it's real, it's happening, because for whatever it is, this dark side, and there's even an onslaught now where equating poverty to the point where people have become desperate, and then you have people sending you strange invitations, okay, strange messages, strange pictures. And if you're not careful, you are probably also just moved to the other side. And this is the wake-up call everyone must just have, except you have decided to live your life the way you are. Please let's win this war over social media. Let's keep our marriages intact. Let's keep our social union intact, and let's get things going. So I'm going to be talking about a few psychological implications, okay, as a result of the impact of social media on marriages, and I'm going to be, giving you some science to this, because as a coach, other than being a coach, I coach executives, and you find out these soft issues. I'm not a therapist, but some of these issues creep up in those conversations, and you find out that if there's no peace, you can't experience purity, and it's purity that leads to progress. So a lot of people are struggling in their homes, in their businesses, personally, around their community, because there's just no peace. And peace is when there's so much troubling of waters. And one of the things that is troubling waters is this thing called social media. And the earlier we begin to nip it in the bud, the better. Because, like I said, there's the psychological implications of social media. And these things are, when you have an heightened sense of anxiety and depression, okay, as a result of the way that you compare yourselves, which leads to a feeling of inadequacy. So because, can you just stay and slay on your lane? I keep telling people, because the fact that your neighbor that is building a bungalow finally finished his building, and you are building a skyscraper, you shouldn't compare your apples, all right, with the pawpaws. Lack of better description, right? So you're onto something big. You're building something, and if you compare at that level, you will just be inadequate. There would have been dissatisfaction. So you cannot constantly think that there's a perfect couple anywhere. Once you start to have that, it's a delusion that leads to increased anxiety and ultimately depression. And with depression, then you begin to talk about suicidal tendencies. Now, another thing social media has done, I don't know, have you been one day watching, you are at home hoping to rest, and then you see pictures and videos of some people having owambe. Hey, and they're poorly, it's like, is this live? Can he get it on? And then, there's this fear of missing out. You're just there, and you're just saying, look, what am I missing out? Why am I here? Why is nobody calling me? Those things also create, what we call FOMO. You're bombarded with images of vacation, of parties, of lifestyles, of choices that make you feel left out or accomplished. Once you constantly get into this mode, something will happen. You will soon realize that you might not be able to satisfy or create desire, excitement with your spouse. You just might not. So I have an example. If for instance you have a spouse that you are always serenading with gifts, right? You just must look for ways to bring up new ideas. Else, it will just become boring. All right? It's like also your favorite meal. At some point, you just get tired of the meal. So now imagine once you're constantly being barged with these issues around, you're missing out on something. After some time, there's just that apprehension that comes up. Okay? And then you start to, in comparison, you begin to see or think that your marriage is boring. Does anybody have any dissenting thoughts? I don't know. Well, so like I said, increased anxiety and depression, the fear of missing out. And then there's also one thing that these things called social media, does to the body or to the mind psychologically, and that's disconnection and emotional numbness. Look, if we start to talk about this emotional numbness, a lot of people will say, look, how will this be? Because when you have a prolonged engagement with social media, you find out that emotionally somehow a part of you just starts to go, numb, because you're deadening your senses to reality. At some point, your brain is now being configured, and stimulated to the point where this addictive nature of constantly scrolling, of passive consumption of content, of seeking quick dopamine, all right, that eats through likes and comments. Sometimes you post. I remember there was a time when I would post certain things and nobody likes, and it just affects my mood until I started to realize that no, a lot of people were even watching and they didn't want to just comment, right? And then I had to overcome that. Now, if you have not been able to unlearn that limitation, you just see that you start to get disconnected. Without any cause, you start to feel that people don't like you, all right? And then you begin to become cranky for no just cause. And then emotional numbness sets in. So you see couples that are sitting together now, and one or both of them are disengaged, scrolling to their phone. They miss opportunities of, or just being together, of nurturing deeper connections, and to engage in conversations that are deep and thought-provoking. That's what is winning the battle. So we must deal with this menace. Aha! And then there's also an elephant in the room. And so I say, which elephant now? The elephant in the room is the erosion of trust. There's somehow that this thing called social media kind of just erodes trust. Okay? There's this, it just kind of just like, because you are open to different kinds of temptation. You are hearing different things. You are getting people's point of view. You are just soon realizing that there's this emotional or physical infidelity going on. So there are online interactions with old friends, your old friends or co-workers, strangers, and it blurs the boundary. Okay, somebody's flirting with you. There are secret messages, or even messaging innocently, to the point where you just start to even also think that is what your spouse is doing. So it becomes suspicious, and jealousy can develop if one partner feels neglected. So you see partners become secretive about their social media use. This leads to doubt, questions about their commitment to the relationships. There are a lot of, I wish I had enough time. I'd set out today to just even break down some of the psychological implications of this, where people have talked about virtual validation. There's the addiction bait. There's the reduced communication and conflict resolution. People just say, don't worry. Just things that you need to solve. Because you are preoccupied with the phone, say, no, please don't worry, I've heard. And somehow things are just being packed unresolved. Okay? Then another thing that happens is insomnia, sleep deprivation and stress. a lot of people, because of the screen time and the rays of the light, don't even get good quality sleep. And not getting good quality sleep also just has the unusual effect even on the individual. So when you are stressed, you also now become cranky, right? And then somehow you begin to transfer aggression. Sometimes you become irritable. And when you are irritable, you just cannot stand whatever is going on around you. Well, I dare say that all of these things, leads to reduced communication, conflicts, leads to, just a lot of psychological trauma. In fact, the one that really now shocked me, which I never even really used to consider, is the fact that people use filters, particularly the women. They so use their phones to the point where they are also not self-assured as to how they look per time. So they constantly have this image of, this is who I want to be like, right? Now, guess what? It kind of demeans you. It kind of belittles you. It kind of just gets you whacked up, to the point where you feel that if you are not, you are probably not just at that level, your self-esteem dwindles. So this thing about body image issues, people at the gym, you see health enthusiasts, the people at the gym are flexing, some people are doing yoga. I beg, respect your body, don't go do past yourself, and so I've talked about this psychological perspective. So there's also a biblical dimension to it. It's about stewarding time and relationship. And there's a scripture that comes to mind in Ephesians 5:16. It says, "We are reminded to make the most of every opportunity because time is precious." So every time you have your spouse is a precious time, and you must take it more seriously. I need to run now. How then can we begin to reclaim? How can we take our place back? Okay, how can we fight this war? How can we fight back? Okay, against the menace of social media. One is that we must create boundaries. I don't know who is listening, but you must set boundaries. Okay, look, can we go to bed and not carry our phones around us? So one thing I usually do is, by the time I'm shutting down, I turn off my phone and I put it aside. In fact, I've also done it in such a way that there's a particular time I just put my phone on silent, and then thereafter I turn it off. Why? Look, it cannot. When there were no phones, we survived. So why then must we always create a sense of urgency as to, somebody might want to reach me? Look, whoever needs to reach me will reach me. I'm telling you. And please, there should be 911 that people can call. I shouldn't be that number that people should be able to call, right? Well, I was just joking. I'm just saying, can we set boundaries? Okay? Another thing we must take note of is about being present. So it's even alarming that people go for dinners, or they are in the room, or they are within the parlor, the principles of that, and they are not present. Something is taking up their attention. So I urge men in redefining masculinity, as we are doing, is to say, look, let's just practice being present. Let's have those conversations, okay? And let's use social media mindfully. Be mindful, be demure, be cutie. Like, I got that also on social media, right? So one day I stumbled on something and some lady said, "I'm so demure, I'm cutie." I'm like, oh really? And then there's a challenge going on, and everybody goes on that challenge. Now that's also how negative challenges also take on, and people are saying different things. God help us. The first thing you must do, communicate about your needs. If you feel that you feel a bit slighted, you're not getting the right attention from your spouse, it will be nice to also communicate some of these things. Okay, and maybe a final thing is practice, the digital detox. Okay, I'm just saying, can you even have maybe a Sunday? Can we say, okay, from morning till evening, can we just even set up, just be us? Okay, I just finished a 3-hour retreat with a group, all wellness group, and we had to experience a digital detox over a 48-hour period. Even though intermittently, some of us still had to quickly catch up on what was going on in the business, but I think it was so relieving to the point where it helped us to distress. And I think, couples should just embrace that, a digital detox for their marriages. Well, look, I wish I can go on and on. I've tried to, just cramp all of this, okay? And I need to say, look, guys, we must allow the marriages win this war over social media. So in closing, social media doesn't have to win the battle over your marriage, okay? It doesn't have to. You just don't have to allow that. And because you will not allow that, you would have taken this, efforts, okay, to create the necessary boundaries, to be mindful, to be demure, to be cutie, to be present. Don't mind me. So look, guys, with the right boundaries, mindfulness, and intentional connections, you can reclaim your relationship and give it the attention it deserves. Remember, your spouse should never feel like they're competing with your phone for your love and your attention. It's okay that they even think there's the other woman. Then can you imagine they think there's the device? That's dangerous, man. That's dangerous, okay? So, guys, I hope that this would help us to further help redefine ourselves as men in marriages and to ensure that the phone does not become the third party in the marriage, just so that we can also start to have healthy, and peaceful homes. And remember, I said it's peace that provokes purity, and purity that leads to progress, okay, in life, love, and in business. Until next time, on this same channel, I hope that we see, and the next time we're going to be talking about, there's something we're going to be talking about. What is it we're going to be talking about tomorrow? Tomorrow we're going to be having a discussion around the one thing that men do on their phones that breaks trust. So we're going to progress this discussion tomorrow, and we hope that you can tune in. If you found this interesting, please, there's a subscribe button. Press the subscribe button. And much more, please share. For all the ladies on the call, share to the men that you love. Okay, so that they learn this thing. For those that are just getting married, make sure you also, and those about to get married, join us tomorrow for day 5, and it promises to be interesting. Till then, have a wonderful evening and stay phenomenal. Bye.